Hello, everybody. This is Fernando for the latest aliens and UFOs video. Once again, we're continuing the book here, UFO Sightings by Alan Baker. This one with chapter 6, going into Operation Majestic 12, and then featuring some of the other segments associated with it. So, we were just talking about it the last video. Apparently, it's a weird but very interesting program that allowed government officials to be able to delve into the aliens and UFO research, or at least some of the findings and evidence associated with them, but in several ways either move forward towards those evidence, like towards those pieces of evidence, or outright deny them. And in this case, again, it's going to continue that particular segment. So without further ado, let's go ahead and let's start this chapter here. This one has to do with the next segment that's called Contents of the Documents, once again focusing on Operation Majestic 12, and then I'll give my own thoughts and opinions on it afterward. So here's essentially what that states. It's called Contents of the Documents. The introductory paragraph on page 002 of the briefing document is as follows. Operation Majestic 12 is a top secret research and development intelligence operation responsible directly and only to the President of the United States. Operations of the project are carried out under control of the Majestic 12 Group, which was established by special classified executive order of President Truman on September 24, 1947, upon recommendation by Dr. Vannevar Bush and Secretary James Forrestal. The document goes on to describe the Kenneth Arnold sighting of 9 disc-shaped objects over Mount Rainier, noting that although this was not the first such sighting, it was the first to gain widespread public attention in the media. Many such reports also came from military witnesses and resulted in independent efforts by several elements of the military to obtain information on the origin and purpose of the objects in the interest of national defense. Nothing of the substance was learned until the Roswell, New Mexico incident, when a disc apparently crash landed on the ranch run by Mac Brazel. This led to the formation of a secret operation on July 7, 1947, to recover the wreckage of the disc for scientific study. The crew, which apparently had ejected from the craft, were found about 2 miles east of the crash site. All 4 of the beings were dead and decomposed due to predator action and exposure to the elements, and were also removed for study. A secret analytical effort was organized by General Twining and Dr. Bush on the direct orders of President Truman. This analysis concluded on September 19th, 1947, that the craft was most likely a short-range reconnaissance vehicle based on its small size and lack of identifiable provisioning. Dr. Brock organized an analysis of the 4 dead crew members, which tentatively concluded on November 30th, 1947, that despite the human appearance of the creatures, they were nevertheless the result of evolutionary processes that were quite different from those observed or postulated in Homo sapiens. Dr. Brock's team suggested the term extraterrestrial biological entities, or EBEs, be adopted as the standard reference term for the creatures until a more definitive designation could be agreed upon. Accepting the extraterrestrial nature of the object and its occupants, speculation centered on their ultimate origin. Although it was considered possible that they might have come from Mars, Dr. Menzel thought it more likely that they came from another solar system altogether. Although attempts were made to decipher the hieroglyphic-like markings discovered on parts of the wreckage, they were largely unsuccessful. The propulsion system of the craft also resisted attempts at analysis, as did the method by which power from the propulsion source was transmitted. There were no identifiable wings, propellers, jets, or other identifiable methods of propulsion and guidance, or even internal wiring or electrical components. It was assumed that the propulsion unit was completely destroyed in the explosion which caused the crash. In December 1947, Project Sign was established in an attempt to gain as much information as possible about the alien craft, their performance characteristics, and their purpose. Tight security was preserved by the liaison between Project Sign and Majestic 12 being limited to two operatives within the Intelligence Division of Air Material Command, whose function was to pass certain information through channels. Project Sign became Project Grudge in December 1948 before being renamed Project Blue Book in 1952. On December 6, 1950, a second object crashed in El Indio Guerrero area of the Texas-Mexico border after a lengthy flight through the atmosphere. A search team was dispatched but found that the craft had been almost completely incinerated. The results or the remains were transported to the Atomic Energy Commission facility at Sandia, New Mexico for study. The motives and intentions of the aliens remain completely unknown, which had serious implications for the national security. In addition, a significant upsurge in apparent surveillance activity of the craft in 1952 caused considerable concern that new developments might be imminent. It was for these reasons, as well as international and technological considerations and the need to avoid public panic, that the Majestic 12 group maintained the need for strictest security to continue without interruption into the new administration. At the same time, a contingency plan, MJ 194904P 78, which was top secret, eyes only, was held in readiness should the need to make a public announcement present itself. The next segment is called the Majestic 12 Operations Manual. In his book, Top Secret Magic, Stanton Friedman relates how in December 1994, he learned that Don Berliner of the Fund for UFO Research had received a package mailed from Wisconsin. The package contained a roll of 35mm film, which, when developed, revealed photographs of a document entitled Majestic 12 Group Special Operations Manual, Extraterrestrial Entities and Technology, Recovery, and Disposal. The document was dated April 1954. Like the earlier MJ-12 documents, it was marked Top Secret, Magic Eyes Only. While the original operations manual contained 6 chapters, 4 appendices, 30 pages of text, and a photographic section, at least according to the contents page, not all of these had been photographed. According to Freeman, Don Berliner informed the General Accounting Office, Congress's investigative arm, of the existence of the document. The GAO was at the time in the process of searching for government records pertaining to the Roswell incident and in turn informed the U.S. Air Force of Berliner's discovery. Neither the Air Force nor the GAO, however, made any reference whatsoever to the operations manual in the subsequent official responses to the extraterrestrial theory of the Roswell incident. The operations manual itself, or at least the extracts included in Friedman's book, adds another fascinating dimension to the Majestic 12 controversy. Since it contains information on the alleged methods by which the group deals with the alien hardware, not to mention the aliens themselves, it recovers. For the extracts themselves, I direct the reader to Stanton Friedman's book. However, a brief summary is in order here. After a brief background explanation of the origin and purpose of Majestic 12, the manual goes on to define extraterrestrial technology and to describe, at least based on general shape, the types of craft that have been encountered and studied: elliptical or disc, fuselage or cigar, ovoid or circular, and then airfoil or triangular. There follows a description of the 2 distinct categories of extraterrestrial biological entities based on the studies conducted on the crews of various crashed spacecraft. Type 1 entities are described as similar to human beings to the extent that they might be mistaken for human beings of the Asian race if seen from a distance. Type 2 entities correspond to the now ubiquitous grays. The recovered technology is then described as being composed of materials unlike any known to terrestrial science, which are extremely light and strong, of an appearance similar to aluminum foil or aluminum magnesium sheeting, but whose characteristics resemble more some kind of unknown plastic-like material. This material displayed no measurable magnetic characteristics or residual radiation. The next chapter covers recovery operations, including cover-up methods such as official denial, the discrediting of witnesses, and the issuance of deceptive statements to explain UFO crashes in mundane terms, i.e., meteorites, downed military craft, etc. Instructions are then given on how to secure the area around the crash site and on the removal and transport of the wreckage. Should an intact and functional craft be encountered, extreme caution should be exercised and it should be approached only by specially trained MJ-12 Red Team personnel wearing protective clothing. Any live EBEs encountered should be taken into custody immediately, and every care should be taken to ensure their survival. The area should then be completely cleansed, and every care should be taken that no traces of the incident remain. A number of receiving facilities to which extraterrestrial materials should be taken are listed, including Area 51S4, Blue Lab WP61, OPNIC BBS01, and Building 21 KB88. The next chapter includes highly detailed procedures for the packing, unpacking, and handling of materials retrieved from a crash site, and is followed by a chapter dealing in greater detail with the EBEs themselves. These are two types of encounters with EBEs. Those initiated by the aliens themselves, in which it is anticipated that the venues will be military bases, and those resulting from spacecraft accidents. With regard to the interaction between human personnel and extraterrestrial entities, security is of paramount importance and should be given a higher priority than the survival of any EBEs encountered, in spite of the desirability of that survival. Instructions are then given for the retrieval and preservation of deceased EBEs. The final chapter in the extras contains instructions for follow-up investigations of UFO sightings reported by members of the public. Let me go ahead then, I'll pause it here. That way we can go over this new bit of information associated with Majestic 12. And then the next part is pretty much going to conclude this chapter. So here you see several segments were chronicled, one involving what the documents were within Majestic 12. It was interesting to see that it was talking more about, obviously, Roswell, how that was basically the genesis of these things when it came to the formation, because it was basically created by the executive order of President Truman on September 24th, 1947. And the Roswell incident happened on July 1947. So you can see that it was one after the other. And then also it detailed the different type of encounters with these aliens, in other words, that were in there, chronicling them as extraterrestrial biological entities. What a fancy way, right, of basically saying aliens or something else involving like a outside life force. And then it also mentioned some attempts on deciphering the hieroglyphics, and then how eventually there was Project Sign becoming Project Grudge, and now the infamous Project Blue Book. So all of this was just basically within the contents of those documents. It was interesting too to read about the second crash, the one that happened in El Indio Guerrero area, how there was nothing left. Like the craft was just gone. It was just completely incinerated. But even then it was taken over there to the Atomic Energy Commission facility. I'll have to see if maybe I can talk about that in a future video. And then the next segment was the manual itself, once again highlighting top secret magic only eyes when it comes to the documents inside. And then it was talking about the two different designations of extraterrestrial biological entities. Type 1, apparently that it's aliens that could be mistaken for Asians, at least from a distance. And then type 2, those involving just actual grays themselves. And then it going into further detail about the materials. And then finally, the different compositions, the shapes associated with the alien crafts themselves, how it goes from elliptical to cigar shape to circular and so on. So this is a very heavy manual. So in other words, it's something that shows a lot of information that's just then seemingly piecemealed into other information and other segments. But the next segment afterward, that'll conclude this, is basically going to state, did this ever exist? Someone was already mentioning in the comments that Majestic 12 was debunked. So it'll be interesting to see what happens here in this next segment about its analysis about whether it even existed at all. All right, everybody. Thanks again as always. Take care. Bye.